Hi everyone, I'm Judy the YouTube Lawyer. Today's live stream will focus on reading another custody pleading in the case between Wendi Adelson and Dan Markel. And unfortunately, my frequent co-hostess, Tony, is sick with a bad cold, so she's not able to join in tonight. But if any of you guys would like to join in and maybe share your thoughts about the Ruth Markel book, then that would be really welcomed. So let me go ahead and add that link in the chat box here for anyone who would like to join in. So thank you, Roxanne. I appreciate you being here, and Catherine for your enthusiasm. So also I have to tell you guys that it is actually raining cats and dogs here with very heavy rain because of the hurricane. So if I just suddenly lose the connection and the screen goes black, it's because the power went out or the internet went down. Yeah. Oh, who won the book? It was someone who, now I can't remember the actual screen name. I think it was something like CB Mac DI, and also is it Moon something? Yeah, people who are not using their real names on YouTube. So there were two winners, and luckily Amazon delivered their books really quickly, so they already got their books several days ago. So thank you guys for joining in. So hi Molly, thanks for being there. Oh great, so you just got your book. Okay, so maybe I should have set this discussion out another week or two then, so more people will have finished reading the book and we'll be able to discuss things. Oh, it's like summer where you are? Okay. Well, it's getting really cold, so you'll see me wearing long sleeves and heavier outfits. Oh yeah, Moonflower. Okay, sorry, I can't remember everybody's screen name. So, okay, so let's get started. We're gonna go ahead and start reading this one pleading that is kind of long, so that's why I'm not going to be able to read more than one pleading tonight. Plus, Tony is not here to help me out, so let me try to read this. I think it's about 12 or 13 pages long. And this one was filed on March 26, 2014, electronically by Dan and his lawyer. It's entitled Former Husband's Counter Motion for Enforcement of MSA on Parenting Issues and Motion for Contempt and Sanctions. The former husband, Daniel Markel, through the undersigned attorney, and pursuant to Rule 1.570C, Florida Rules of Civil Procedure, moves to enforce various parenting provisions of the final judgment of dissolution of marriage and incorporated marital settlement agreement dated 7/30/2013, and to hold the former wife in contempt of court and impose appropriate sanctions for a violation of various parenting provisions of the MSA. And in support of this motion alleges the following. Number one, the parties entered into the MSA on 7/30/2013, which MSA, that's a marital settlement agreement, was approved and incorporated into the final judgment of dissolution of marriage, entered 7/31/2013. True copies of the final judgment and MSA are attached as Composite Exhibit 1. The former wife regularly refuses to make all reasonable efforts to facilitate communication between Mr. Markel and the children. The parties are required by Section 2.1C of the MSA to make all reasonable efforts to facilitate communication between the other party and the children. Section 2.1C of the MSA further requires that telephone calls and correspondence, electronic or otherwise, are to be encouraged by the parties, never discouraged. Emphasis applied. The former wife refuses to facilitate video teleconferencing as part of any agreement that would provide notice, consistency, or reasonable remedy in the case of persistent breach. 2A. The former wife's refusal to enter into any arrangement is coupled with her persistent refusal to even informally provide video teleconferences with the children. Tellingly, In the absence of any shadow of litigation, former wife only facilitated 3 video contacts during August, September, and October 2013 for a total of 25 minutes. Mr. Markel tried to resolve this problem with Ms. Adelson and the parenting coordinator, but no resolution was made, even though the parenting coordinator recommended that Ms. Adelson provide regular Skype access on extended stays. That refusal, coupled with subsequent breaches, has necessitated this litigation. 2B. Video conferencing is very easy to achieve. Both parties have internet-enabled phones, tablets, and laptops, as well as internet service in their homes. Moreover, Mr. Markel offered to purchase whatever technology for Ms. Adelson that would make it even easier. 2C. The 3 video contacts made in August, September, and October 2013 by Ms. Adelson averaged about 8 minutes each. Thus, this shows that the children can easily sit and be engaged for a non-trivial amount of time. Indeed, Skype calls facilitated by Mr. Markel and the children, either with Ms. Adelson or others, have lasted as long as 40 minutes. So the children are capable and willing to use this technology. Still, the former wife regularly refuses requests by Mr. Markel to facilitate video contact with the children during times when the children are in extended periods of residence with their mother, and when he is otherwise denied physical access to them by former wife's gatekeeping actions described below. 2D. The former wife has repeatedly stated that she considers such contacts an intrusion into her parenting time and not in the best interests of the children. Both the parenting coordinator and experts in child development state that facilitating communication with the other parent is an aspect of parenting, not an intrusion into it, and should be thought of as constitutive of the children's well-being as brushing their teeth. Experts in child development further tout the use of video conferencing, in particular to enhance contact between children and parents. See e.g. Drs. R. Woolman and R. Pomerantz, Telepresence Technology and Divorce and Separation, Open Access Journal of Forensic Psychology, 2012, noting how Skype conversations engage toddlers and enables toddlers to attach by seeing facial expressions and following stories. Strikingly, Ms. Adelson regularly facilitates such contact between the children and her parents and regularly avails herself to Mr. Markel's open policy of facilitating Skype or FaceTime whenever she wants. Accordingly, her claims of undue burden or not being in the best interests of the children are not credible. 2E. Mr. Markel's requests have been reasonable. They reflect nothing more than what Ms. Adelson herself agreed to in November 2012, or what this court ordered in the summer of 2013, an order that Ms. Adelson brazenly ignored. His requests were fashioned in consultation with a family therapist and would occur only every other day for about 10 minutes or so when the children spend an extended 3 days or more period of time in residence with parent A when parent B is otherwise unable to see the children in person. Mr. Markel recognizes that parenting toddlers can be tricky, and so he is willing to be very flexible about when the Skyping occurs, so long as he is given some reasonable notice and opportunity to arrange his schedule, particularly if he is traveling for work. Mr. Markel simply wants meaningful and regular contact with his toddlers, and he is happy to continue to facilitate whatever requests Ms. Adelson would make. 2F. The former wife's refusals are unreasonable and demonstrate that she is not making all reasonable efforts to communicate as required under Section 2.1c of the parties' MSA. This court has authority to order such electronic contact pursuant to Florida Statute 61.13003. The former wife regularly fails to facilitate telephone contact with the minor children. 3A. The parties operate under a telephone contact agreement fashioned with the assistance of the parenting coordinator in September 2013. Per the agreement, the party with whom the children are in residence must ensure that the children telephone the other parent between 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. for a few minutes if the other parent has not had an opportunity to spend time with the children that day. Because Mr. Markel attempts to see the children every day that they are in school, the practical effect of the agreement typically requires a handful of calls each month. That is, only when Ms. Adelson keeps the children from school and on her weekends, since she allows Mr. Markel no access to them then. 3B. Despite the undemanding requirements described above, in the first 5 or so months since the MSA was signed, the former wife missed well over 18 required telephone calls with no remedy to correct this pattern of intransigence. Indeed, during the Christmas 2013 holiday, when the former wife had the children for almost 3 consecutive weeks visiting her family in South Florida, she did not facilitate any contact on 12 of 19 days that she had them. What's more, Ms. Adelson announced in advance of her trip her intention to only contact Mr. Markel every other day while she was gone with the children. Mr. Markel objected to the perverse situation in which being her, I think there's a typo there, in which being further away with the children for longer periods of time somehow led to less frequent communication with his children. 3C. In addition to altogether missing many required telephone contacts, the former wife regularly fails to make all reasonable efforts to make the telephone contacts meaningful or intelligible. To illustrate, the former wife often telephones Mr. Markel when the children are distracted or in a noisy environment. She regularly fails to return dropped calls. She regularly allows return calls to go to voicemail, rather than facilitating a complete call for even a few minutes. Once, Mr. Markel didn't hear a call from the former wife during the hour, and so he called back very shortly after 7 p.m. and texted too. Nonetheless, it was outside the window by a few minutes, and so she ignored his plea to speak to the children, to wish them good night while he was out of town. In defense of her practices, Ms. Adelson will even flatly lie to the parenting coordinator about her responses. In the fall of 2013, Ms. Adelson told the coordinator via email that she apologized to Mr. Markel for missing a call once, when in fact no such apology was issued. When the lie was brought to her attention, Ms. Adelson didn't bother to apologize to either the parenting coordinator or Mr. Markel for lying about her purported apology. The net effect of the former wife's actions is to regularly deprive Mr. Markel of the communications with the children called for by Section 2.1.c of the parties' MSA. And because both the quality and the quantity of telephone communications are severely limited, even less frequent Skyping would be preferable to the shoddy way in which Ms. Adelson performs her obligations under the telephone contact arrangement. What's more, there has been no remedy available for missed calls and the like. Consequently, Ms. Adelson has, for more than a year, enjoyed complete impunity for disregarding her obligations, whether arising from the agreement they made in November 2012, the judicial order in the summer of 2013, or the MSA since July 2013. It's well past time for that to stop. Section 2.3d, childcare, of the MSA requires that, quote, in the event the parties are in need of childcare or babysitting for the children, or will for any reason not be able to personally parent or care for the children, they shall afford the other the opportunity to care for the children. Former wife routinely violates the MSA's right of first refusal. 4A. Since August 2013, the former wife has on at least 5 occasions refused to offer Mr. Markel a chance to watch the children while they are awake, thereby nullifying Section 2.3D of the MSA, and instead allowing third parties to provide care for the children at times when she chose to go to cocktail parties, guest lectures, or leadership conferences. 4B. When violations of the right of first refusal are brought to the former wife's attention, she has offered no apology or compensatory time. Instead, she simply continues to violate the MSA as she deems appropriate. Both parties have unusually flexible jobs as law professors, which allows them to spend substantial time with their children during their waking hours, and that's why the MSA is crafted the way it is. 4C. The violations are troubling because, number one, the former wife's mother, who is frequently asked to watch the children, is a source of parental alienation efforts, as outlined herein. And number two, the frequent outsourcing of care to the maternal grandmother leads to the former wife ignoring the preschool director's recommendations that the children be sent to preschool regularly so that they can enhance their social development skills. By violating the MSA in this way, Ms. Adelson deprives Mr. Markel of any physical access to the children in contravention of the MSA's co-parenting clause, which requires that each party endeavor to allow unhampered contact and free access between the children and the parents. Okay, so let's take a break and see how many people are out there. Okay, yeah, so sorry that Tony is not able to help me read, so I already feel like my voice is faltering and there's going to be rude people making comments as usual. So the good news also is that one of the other subscribers has actually reached out to me, and he has said that he's more than happy to help me read some other documents in the near future. So we'll have another person who is going to be on board to help read these really lengthy documents. So I appreciate everybody out there who's been so supportive. Okay, so Molly is saying she hasn't had time to read her book due to camping for 10 days. Okay, well, sure. I'm glad you had a good time camping. Okay, Roxanne was seriously thinking Chucky had flipped. Oh, you even had a dream about it. Okay, I had a dream last night. Chucky flipped on Wendi. Well, wouldn't we like that? Yeah, we shall see. But definitely, I think that out of the people in his family, he's probably most resentful of Wendi. Yeah. Hi, Gina. Thank you for being here. Roxanne says, I don't think he can make it in prison. He will fold. I agree. Hi, Hartley. Thank you for being here also. Okay, Roxanne says, my intuition and my profiling of them as individuals as much as I can with a limited baseline I have. Okay, I'll stop sharing the screen for now. If Charlie flips, it will not change his sentencing much. Yeah, I mean, they would still want him to be in prison for quite a long time for orchestrating the murder, I'm sure. Brittany says, I finished Ruth's book in 2 days. Interesting things I noticed. Wendi tried to claim the GoFundMe money, claiming she was his widow, and also called about his life insurance days after his death. Yes, I remember that, although yeah, I would have loved to have heard more details about this GoFundMe thing, but it did sound like maybe Wendi was trying to also set up a GoFundMe to get donations right after Dan died and calling herself a widow. So yes, very interesting. And again, it just reflects poorly on her. So what would be more satisfying for you guys, a trial or Charlie flipping on his sister-in-law? I would be more satisfied if he flipped on his sister and or mom. Yes, because with a trial, I would still be so worried that, the jury could still just not convict him. So I would be more excited if he actually told the truth and then pointed the fingers at some other people. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so there's some dispute here. Okay. Wendi claiming she was his widow and pursuing additional profit from his death is diabolical. Yeah. Yeah, it sounded like there was definitely some conflict there also about Wendi asking for money from Dan's sister or parents or something, wanting to make sure she got her chunk of money. Yeah, it's justice for the Markel family. Okay. Okay, maybe I'll just flash these up real quickly so I can finish trying to read this before any internet service disappears, since it's still really windy and rainy outside where I am. Yeah, it wasn't just one act. It involved preparation, planning before the act and after, above all the years of cover-up that followed. Yeah, exactly. It's pretty devious of a plot. Yeah, it wasn't just your typical crime of passion where someone stabs their spouse or former spouse or girlfriend and then it's over. This took quite a lot of planning. I'd rather save the Markel family from another trial. He will flip. Yeah, that would be nice. Good point, Roxanne. Those trials are hell for the Markels. Yes, and that's basically what Ruth Markel mentioned in her book, that there was so much uncertainty and the dates just kept changing and things kept getting delayed, and it's just incredibly stressful. Not to mention, you think, like, how would the whole family make all these plans, because they don't live anywhere near Tallahassee. So they would also have to make all these travel arrangements and set aside time from work. So I'm pretty sure Dan's sister still has a job, and she had 3 children too. So a lot of trouble and disruption in their lives, not to mention the mental stress. Yeah. Wendi lie? No way. Hi, TXE. Thanks for being here. Please subscribe to her channel also. These are 2 attorneys from Texas who also have their own YouTube channel. Hello from Texas. Family law and custody disputes are messy and typically can make the lawyers involved very rich after billing for all this back and forth. Yes, that's very true. And as we heard, Wendi's attorney back then in 2013 was charging $600 an hour for the time involved in that custody battle. Okay, Charlie Adelson for jail. Thanks for being here. I think a trial is necessary for the Markel grandchild. They will eventually want to see everything on record. Seeing how Uncle Charlie operates will help them. Yeah, that's if they are in the mindset when they get older to actually read up on the whole case. Yeah, poor kids. Yeah, even if there's no trial, the transcripts will be available to the children at a later time. Yeah, like the depositions. Yeah, and all the investigative reports, definitely, as well as from the previous trials. A trial is public record, but I guess a plea deal is behind closed doors. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we wouldn't know all the details of that. Thank you, Roxanne. Thanks for being supportive. Okay, thank you, Angela. That's very nice of you. Donna Adelson for prison. Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with you. Okay, so you're kind of preaching to the choir. Harvey Adelson for prison. Wendi Adelson for prison. Okay, TGIF. Yeah. Hi, True Lifestyles. Thanks for being here also. Okay, a widow. Give me a break. Okay, thank you, dude. Thank you, Kim, for being here. Hi, Sully. How ironic, Wendi doing a GoFundMe. This woman is beyond narcissistic. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe later I'll have time to find that passage and read it out. Yeah, so gross. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not in Florida, luckily, but it's been raining and very windy all day today, and I lost internet power or internet access earlier today. But right now it seems to be working. Okay, so let me drink something. Okay, let's take a pause here. Okay, so let's get back there. I'm about halfway done. So again, this was filed in March of 2014, so about 4 months before Dan was shot. Okay, so it says Section 2.1H of the MSA requires that at all times, whether in town or out of town, each party shall keep the other party advised as to where the minor children shall be, whether during residency, vacations, holidays, or otherwise, and shall provide the other party with a telephone number where the children may be called and an address where the children may be located. Former wife regularly violates duty to inform requirements of MSA. Number 5, the former wife has failed to provide Mr. Markel with an address or specific location of the children during multiple out-of-town trips with the children in violation of Section 2.1H of the MSA. For instance, in the past, she has told him that she's taking the children to her parents' home, when in fact she's taken them to Orlando with no address or information provided. Sorry. Section 2.1b of the MSA requires the parties to, at all times, conduct themselves and their activities in a proper manner which will promote the best interest of the minor children. Former wife fails to follow clinical recommendations of child development experts. 6a. The former wife has to date refused to follow the recommendations of a family therapist, Dr. Deborah Weaver, and the preschool director, Dr. Pamela Phelps, to split the children up regularly to allow one-on-one time between each child and each parent. The former wife has refused numerous requests from Mr. Markel to implement any one-on-one time with the minor children. 6b. The refusal to implement one-on-one time is detrimental to the children's best interest and well-being, and Ms. Adelson's refusals to work out something either formally or informally are unreasonable. 6c. Ms. Adelson also regularly ignores Dr. Phelps' recommendation that children attend school as much as possible so that their social development skills are enhanced. Section 2.1d of the MSA requires that the parties consult with one another on all questions related to their upbringing, including but not limited to religious upbringing, discipline, financial, moral, social, recreational, and legal matters, school and educational programs, changes in social environment, and non-emergency and emergency health care, both medical and dental, emphasis applied. Former wife violates the MSA by refusing to communicate and consult with Mr. Markel concerning education and other matters. 7a. After a program in January 2014 at Creative Preschool, Mr. Markel asked if Ms. Adelson would, at any time convenient, be willing to discuss the minor child Benjamin's future schooling and his transition to kindergarten. She flatly told him no. Only a month later, after she was made aware of the former husband's intent to file an enforcement motion related to parenting issues, did Ms. Adelson exhibit some willingness to communicate with Mr. Markel, but she still refuses to converse with him directly. As a result, the opportunity to discuss various new potentially acceptable schooling options has passed with the March 1st, 2014 deadline. The school situation for next year remains unresolved, although the recommendation of the preschool director has been to minimize disruption to the children's life and to continue them in their programs with friends and teachers that each has had for the last 3 years. Mr. Markel agrees with this assessment, which seems especially appropriate since Ms. Adelson has indicated an intent to change homes for the second time in 2 years. 7b. In January 2014, the former wife enrolled the minor children in recreational soccer without prior consultation with Mr. Markel. Mr. Markel is enthused about the children's participation in soccer, and he attends and funds it in substantial part without being asked. But he is opposed to unilateral decisions concerning the children's participation in new activities. This behavior on the part of the former wife violates Section 2.1d of the parties' MSA. 7c. Since the separation and the divorce, Ms. Adelson has persistently been unwilling to communicate in a conversation with Mr. Markel directly or with a family therapist without significant matters affecting the children, such as potty training or the children's diet. Mr. Markel believes, in light of Ms. Adelson's refusal to communicate with him about important parenting issues, that decision-making authority on matters affecting the children's best interests children should be given to Mr. Markel provisionally. Under such an arrangement, Mr. Markel would have a duty to consult both Ms. Adelson and child care experts before making final decisions regarding the children's schooling or other activities. Mr. Markel is seeking such provisional relief pursuant to Florida Statute 61.13, subsection 4C7, and would happily relinquish such full decision-making authority at a point when Ms. Adelson demonstrates that she is reasonably able to communicate with the former husband about issues concerning the best interest of the children. Section 2.1e of the MSA requires, in pertinent part, that Neither party shall at any time disparage, criticize, belittle, or otherwise ridicule the other parent in the presence of the minor children. Each party shall instruct the children to love and respect the other parent, and shall promote a loving and caring feeling for the other parent. Emphasis applied. Section 2.1K of the MSA requires in pertinent part that each party shall encourage a feeling of affection between the minor children and the other party. Neither party shall do anything to hamper the natural development of the minor children's love and respect for the other party. Emphasis applied. By flouting the right of first refusal, the former wife creates conditions for Mr. Markel to be disparaged in the presence of the children by their maternal grandmother. 8A. On 3 specific occasions in November 2013, the children informed Mr. Markel, "Abba, Dad, Grandma says you're stupid." When queried as to why Grandma, the maternal grandmother, would say such things, the children replied jointly that it is because she says you're trying to take her sunshines away from her. In December 2013, Lincoln, the younger son, further stated to Mr. Markel in front of the former wife, "Abba, Grandma says she hates you." The children were visiting with their grandparents at that time. 8B. That the children have heard disparaging statements from their maternal grandmother about their father is especially concerning in light of the fact that, as mentioned above, the former wife leaves the children unsupervised with her parents in violation of the court-ordered right of first refusal. Mr. Markel is concerned that continued exposure to such negativity forms the foundation for parental alienation. Mr. Markel is puzzled by the maternal grandmother's behavior, as he has been supportive of the children's relationship with the maternal grandparents. Regardless of the rationale, the maternal grandmother's dislike of Mr. Markel must not be displayed in the presence of the children. 8C. The former wife is obliged to prevent disparagement of the children's father. The fact that the reports arose after the children spent substantial time with the maternal grandparents, either alone or with the former wife, is circumstantial evidence that the former wife has breached her contractual obligations in this regard. Section 2.1K of the Parents' MSA states in pertinent part that each party shall attempt to ensure that the children are allowed unhampered contact with and free access to the other party. The former wife persists in inhibitory parental gatekeeping and regularly deprives the children of access to Mr. Markel as ensured by the MSA. 9A. Mr. Markel signed the MSA because the plain language of the free access clause, coupled with the communications clauses, ensured his children would be able to see him or have meaningful communication with him in an unhampered and free manner. Ms. Adelson signed that agreement, but she fails to conform her conduct to its requirements. Indeed, Ms. Adelson regularly seeks to impede the children's free access to their father. Number 1. In February 2014, in response to the children's invitation for Mr. Markel to come play with them after soccer, Ms. Adelson told the children in front of the father that he had plans and had to go. Mr. Markel, in truth, would love to have participated in play with the children and had no plans. In short, Ms. Adelson wouldn't allow the children to enjoy the father's company in a reasonable manner, despite the plain language of the Section 2.1K of the MSA. Mr. Markel subsequently offered different compromises, but the compromises were refused by Ms. Adelson. 2. The children regularly invite Mr. Markel to join them for a snack at McDonald's or playtime elsewhere, but Ms. Adelson refuses to accommodate any of their requests, again in violation of the plain language of Section 2.1K of the MSA. 3. On March 18, 2014, Ms. Adelson sought to prevent Mr. Markel from being at the preschool to visit the children at the same time when she was planning to pick them up. The MSA clearly allows both parents to visit the preschool, but former wife instructed Mr. Markel that because she was en route to school now, that Mr. Markel should exit appropriately when I arrive. This imperious request was bizarre, inappropriate, under the requirements of the MSA and at odds with the reality of Ms. Adelson's past visits at the preschool during the times when Mr. Markel picked the children up for his overnights. 9b. Since September 2012, the children have not once been allowed to see Mr. Markel on the former wife's weekends, whether extended or otherwise, not even for a few moments. This is despite Mr. Markel allowing Ms. Adelson unfettered access to the children during his weekends with the children, a privilege the mother has routinely enjoyed to her advantage. 9c. Ms. Adelson's behavior amounts to inhibitory gatekeeping, is in direct contravention of the unhampered contact and free access clause of the MSA, and is detrimental to the children's well-being. As experts in child development attest, the best empirical outcomes for children of divorce occur when opportunities for paternal engagement with the children are maximized. See generally Dr. Michael Lamb, The Role of the Father in Child Development, 2010. Ms. Adelson's refusal to allow the children to see their father on her weekends is further exacerbated by her regularly removing the children from preschool to create 4 or 5 day stretches where the children are deprived of unhampered contact with and free access to their father. Section 2D9, page 6 of the Parents' MSA states in pertinent part that each parent shall have the right to spend time with the children on the children's birthdays. The former wife has refused to provide access to both children on each child's birthday. 10. After entering into the MSA, the mother initially agreed to host joint birthday parties for the children, but later repudiated that agreement and then refused to give Mr. Markel both children for an equal amount of time on Lincoln's birthday on October 2013. This was particularly inappropriate because until nearly the last minute, Mr. Markel wasn't certain he would have both children for the birthday party he had planned for Lincoln, a party to which Ms. Adelson was invited. Despite being requested to craft a workable clarification or agreement to deal with the children's birthday issue, refuses to do so, resulting in Mr. Markel being forced to resort to formal litigation to resolve the dispute. A court order is needed to provide a default resolution. Attorney's fees and costs. Number 11. Mr. Markel has retained the undersigned attorney and has agreed to pay reasonable attorney's fees. Mr. Markel has sought to address these issues without litigation, but has been rebuffed repeatedly by Ms. Adelson, who has refused to meet with a family therapist so that the parents could get on the same page on parenting issues. The persistent and varied breaches of the former wife have necessitated the instant motion and expenditure of attorney's fees and costs by Mr. Markel. Pursuant to Section 7.2, payment of attorney's fees and costs in the event of enforcement of the MSA, the prevailing party in any enforcement action is entitled to recover attorney's fees and costs from the non-prevailing party. Relief sought. Wherefore, the former husband, Daniel Markel, moves for the following relief. A. Enforce the MSA as follows. 1. Require the former wife to comply with the all reasonable efforts to facilitate communication language of Section 2.1c of the MSA and have the court initiate a Skype or similar protocol pursuant to Florida Statute 61.13003 that would provide notice, consistency, and a remedy for breach. 2. Require the former wife to communicate with Mr. Markel concerning the education or other matters related to the minor children prior to decisions being made and to provide information about the children's whereabouts when taken out of town. 3. Require the former wife to comply with the right of first refusal set forth in Section 2.3d Childcare of the MSA and to provide compensatory time. Number 4. Require the former wife to facilitate one-on-one time with the minor children, consistent with the recommendations of Dr. Weaver and Dr. Phelps, the experts in childhood development. 5. Require the former wife to facilitate each parent having both children for equal time on each of the children's birthdays. 6. enjoin the former wife from allowing the maternal grandmother to have unsupervised time with the children, consistent with the right of first refusal, and to impose appropriate limitations to safeguard the children from being subjected to disparaging comments about their father. Number 7, enforce the MSA's co-parenting provision that the children be given unhampered contact and free access to the parents by requiring each parent to provide physical access in a reasonable amount of time with the children on any day when the parties are approximate to each other, unless otherwise agreed to. This would require each hosting parent to afford the other parent at least 45 minutes of shared or solo contact time with both children. This will not apply in addition to any day when the children are available to be visited at school or during some other activity. Number 8, allocate to Mr. Markel provisional decision-making authority over matters discussed in the MSA Section 2.1d, subject to consultation requirements with Ms. Adelson and family or child therapists, until Ms. Adelson no longer evidences the intransigence and inability to communicate that has required this counter motion to enforce the parenting provisions of the MSA. B, determine that the former wife has willfully failed to abide by the shared parental responsibility standards imposed by the MSA as specified herein, and enter an order holding the former wife in contempt of court and impose appropriate sanctions pursuant to the court's inherent authority, as outlined in former husband's companion memorandum of authorities to be filed shortly. C, enter an order requiring the former wife to pay all reasonable attorney's fees and costs incurred by Mr. Markel in bringing the instant counter motion before the court. D, such additional relief as this court determines to be just and equitable under the circumstances. Now we see that distinct signature of Scott A. Snavely, Dan Markel's attorney. Okay, certificate of service. And then the rest of it is just, let's see, the final judgment of the dissolution of marriage, which was filed on July 31st, 2013. And then he also attached the actual marital settlement agreement. Okay, which I'm not going to scroll through the whole entire thing because the kids' names and the birth dates are also included. Okay. So that was that. I'm glad to see people are still there and the internet is still working despite the howling rain and wind outside my window here. And I'll take a look at the comments. Let's see here. Okay, True Lifestyles, you're okay in Florida. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Bonnie. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Roxanne. Okay. Oh, hi, Lynette. Thank you for being here also. Okay, thanks. Yeah, people have said that to me too, but I think I'm a little too young to really get that reference. I guess it's a Cary Grant thing. Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, it was just dark and stormy for 3 days where you are in Florida. Okay, glad things are okay. Yeah, it looks like Mentor Lawyer is also doing fine because he's been live streaming his tennis matches in Tallahassee. Okay, Not Now says her behavior is unacceptable. My son shares custody with his daughter's mother. The entire arrangement is cooperative and loving. All family members are helpful and loving. Wendi Adelson's behavior is sinful. Yeah, as told by Dan and his attorney, it does sound pretty appalling. And, you know, it's sort of like her character in This Is Our Story, the main character that's sort of based on herself, you know, where she just really wants to get rid of the husband and just erase all traces of the husband with the little kid that she ends up adopting, or the baby that she adopts in the book. Yeah. Question, why does it say Catherine Myers is Charlie's lawyer on his case now? Oh, okay. Does it? Okay. I didn't see that. Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, she was always one of the attorneys on his team because she works in the same firm with Daniel Rashbaum, but that's interesting. Who knows? Maybe she's going to take over and do more of the main role, or maybe Daniel just is going to end up, you know, not representing him. I'm not sure. Yeah, interesting. I didn't realize that. She said she married without passionate love, as if she knows what love is. Please. Okay. Yes, that is interesting news. Glad the storm is over. Yeah, how did you hear that? Just curious, will Charlie Adelson still be responsible for child support whenever he is convicted? Well, I think so, because it was a settlement that was still made into a court order back when the child's mother filed the paternity and child support case. So it's still an order. So he's still technically responsible for paying that whopping $1,500 a month. But he/his attorney could always make a motion to modify later on. I mean, that's just based on my knowledge of child support here in North Carolina, but it can typically still be modified if there's like a big change in somebody's income. For example, if the dad has no income, but he still has plenty of assets, as far as I know. So I don't think the judge would let him out of paying child support altogether. So maybe Rashbaum is like, oh no, this is too big of a loss. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, because sometimes a client just meshes better with one of the attorneys from the same firm and maybe wants that other attorney to then take over the case. So it could be. Yeah, so True Lifestyles is saying that she just saw that yesterday. She's going to screenshot it and post it on her community page. Okay, thank you for the information. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So I wonder, or could it be something in the court system in the computer files where only one attorney's name shows up first? I have no idea. Yeah, but that's interesting. Charlie has the money. Yep, he's still responsible for his child. I'm sure he's bleeding money big time right now. Yes, exactly. So that's why we hope that the child's mother got a free house or free condo out of the deal, since her child support amount seems to be pretty low. Maybe that's why the motion was pulled. Change of counsel. Yeah, we're not sure. Yeah. Okay. I guess Donna felt that her role of domestic coordinator was in jeopardy because of Dan. Disgusting. Yeah, they both seem to be very dismissive of Dan's role, and didn't really care about the kids having any sort of relationship with him. Yeah, she felt like she was entitled to those kids as the grandma. She seemed so cold and devoid of emotion on her TV debut. Yeah, I think she was just putting on that huge smile, like all excited that she's on national TV on Wheel of Fortune. Right? Okay, I'm glad you guys see it's something. I thought it was strange. She's his main attorney now. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I wonder how she is. Yeah, because yeah, we never, as far as I know, we've never heard her speaking on camera. So Myers does not believe in Chucky. Not like Rashbaum. Okay. We'll see what kind of attorney she is. Yeah. But again, she also doesn't seem to do a lot of the criminal defense type, regular criminal murder cases. I get the feeling that she also specialized more in white collar crime, just like the other attorney. Okay. I wonder how she'll perform on what we all hope will be her next TV appearance. Oh, yeah, wouldn't that be interesting if she is arrested, if it gets shown on national TV? I think a lot of people would enjoy seeing that, because I don't think there was any footage released from Charlie's arrest. Does it go back to Rashbaum at one time representing Donna and Harvey and now representing Charlie may appear as a conflict of interest? Yeah, that's true. It could be. Yeah. So we're all just taking some guesses here. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna research her. Yes. So she graduated. Didn't she graduate from Washington University Law School? I'm pretty sure she went to Washington University Law School and graduated at the top of the class. Yeah. So okay. Will she repeat the outfit, shoulder pads and all? Okay, you're talking about Donna, right? Yeah. I think she's moved past the shoulder pad stage. Yeah. In the weeks before Dan's murder, I wonder what the boys heard while the Adelsons were planning the last stages of Dan. Yeah, that is just really, really sad that perhaps during that trip in June, that the family could have, was probably plotting the whole murder. So where were the little kids then? Yeah, so sad. Yeah. Gotta love the 80s attire. Okay, good point. They knew they'd have to deal with that conflict of interest. This whole thing sounds like a nightmare. Feel sorry for anybody trying to work out these child custody issues. Yeah, child custody cases are always pretty difficult and emotional. And, I just prefer doing regular divorce cases where you're talking about money and assets and debts as opposed to children. Yeah. Wonderful. Harvey had a head full of hair in the 80s. Yeah, he probably did. Yeah. Okay. This document Judy is reading definitely goes to Wendi's motivation for murder. Lifetime of this vitriol would be hard for Wendi to endure. Wonder if it will come up in Wendi's trial. Oh, sure. Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, it definitely would be relevant to show the motive and what was brewing, what was going on with the family court battle in the months leading up to Dan's murder. I think there's something worth investigating regarding Wendi's employment. Nonprofits, especially those tied to Democrats, are often money laundering operations and doing the opposite of their missions. Huh. Okay. Well, I mean, I did notice that Impact, what's it called? Impact Fund. That was the place where Wendi worked for a while. And then there was a lot of uproar about that because it was supposed to be about immigrant rights or something. And yeah, that organization seems to have folded at least 2 or 3 years ago, so it doesn't even exist anymore. The Donna provision is what caused a murder. Donna was not going to accept that. Yeah, I mean, it was probably the straw that broke the camel's back, right? That really threw her into a rage that Jibbers would dare to try to confront her about the way she tried to manipulate the grandkids and tried to, just criticize him in the presence of the kids. Oh, hi, Tony. She says, I couldn't help Judy tonight. I'm sick. Good job, Judy. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I got through that. Man, I still need to drink some hot tea and stuff. Yeah, so let's all hope Tony gets better soon. Yeah. Okay, sending healing vibes. She might be under a third party's control now. If they came to her rescue, she's not a free agent. She's got favors to return. Oh, okay. Who are you referring to? Okay, is it who has favors to return? Is it Katie? Okay, not sure. Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. Yeah, hey, Sarah. Oh, okay. Kate is co-counsel. Yeah, she's co-counsel, although True Lifestyle saw some sort of filing where Kate was listed as the main attorney now. Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is where I have no idea how much his defense would cost, but if he's having 2 law partners from a firm down in Miami having to fly up to Tallahassee, yeah. I mean, especially for Charlie, I mean, he's got these like big time attorneys that are used to making tons and tons of money. So I don't know. I'm guessing it's definitely going to be at least hundreds of thousands of dollars, or maybe even closer to $1 million, because a lot of times, just based on what I've heard from criminal law attorneys that I've worked for, they will just kind of make up a quote based on the client. Like there's no actual, set fee that you charge for everybody charged with the same kind of crime, because every case is different. And then seeing what Charlie is facing and seeing that his family has millions of dollars, I'm sure they're going to charge them out the wazoo, because they can sort of afford it, right? So I would guess probably at least $500,000 to maybe even millions, because we don't know how long this case is going to take. And it seems like there are tons and tons of recordings and deposition transcripts and trial transcripts, all sorts of documents that both attorneys are going to have to read through and listen to. So it's going to take forever. So it is going to be really expensive. And I would assume that Kate Myers and Daniel Rashbaum charge more than DeCoste and Coas would. Yeah. Oh, okay. You slid in risky business style. Sorry you're late. Okay. Thank you, Carrie, for being here. Those poor boys, time is not Wendi's friend, and her kids will start hating her for having a hand in Dan's murder. Yeah, that would be really, really strange. And I don't know what's going to happen with those poor kids, when they find out more information about what happened with their father. Yeah. Didn't Wendi say that she couldn't remember if Dan's sister filed a petition to be in charge of the what the children's money. Yeah, I remember she was being kind of wishy-washy when Kappelman was questioning her about the money and the life insurance and what Wendi supposedly got after Dan died. Yeah. So, but I think Wendi did say that Dan's sister was in charge of the life insurance money. Yeah, because based on Ruth Markel's book, Wendi thought that maybe she could have been the life insurance beneficiary. Wouldn't that have been great? But then it turned out that Dan had changed the beneficiaries of his life insurance to his own kids before he died. So, so I think most likely the sister, Dan's sister, is the one that's handling at least some of the money. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, thank you for being here, Anton. Yeah. Okay. Charlie and his family are going to go broke. They should do more game shows. Okay. Yeah, I don't think they have the fake pep and the enthusiasm anymore to be on game shows. Yeah. Charlie is bleeding money big time. Yeah. Don't know how long this can last since he's not making money now. Well, he did say on that child support financial affidavit that he had $3.35 million or so in assets. And we all know that was definitely undercounting and not fully disclosing all his assets, because he didn't even mention anything about having a stockpile of cash or a bunch of cars and other things that are worth money. So, I mean, maybe half of his assets or more could be going to his legal defense. Yeah. After listening to Surviving the Survivor, he's going to be at Target in jail for money and sex. Yeah, I mean, I thought that was really interesting to hear from the ex-convicts on the latest episode of Surviving the Survivor, where they basically did say that, he would probably have to get a boyfriend in jail to protect him from assaults, and that they would target him because they would find out pretty quickly that he's not like they are, and that he comes from a rich family and he has lots of money and he was a former periodontist. So, well, that's just the environment that he's wound up in. And I mean, he's kind of lucky to not be in the general population right now and seeing what it's really like in jail. Yeah. Harvey is trying to evict somebody from their apartments, and the guy stopped paying rent because it's full of roaches. Oh, okay. Where did you hear that? Yeah, I haven't heard about that. Yeah, but I can imagine if they owned all sorts of rental properties, they were bound to have some conflicts with tenants, or maybe some tenants really hate them, or former tenants. Yeah, yeah, slumlords too. Yeah, they owned quite a number of rental properties. Oh, okay. Sarah says it's a 10-unit building. Okay, thanks for the info. You guys see on Surviving the Survivor, yes, the ex-cons on the panel were saying that inmates are going to extort the bejesus out of Charlie. Yeah, he's going to have to get a lot of those fancy care packages to curry favor with people and trade the food and toiletries and stuff. You can't say that he's not making money. I'm sure he's got passive income. That's true. Yeah, although the stock market has really dropped a lot this year. So yeah, he's going to be Miss Adelson. Okay, so definitely watch Surviving the Survivor. They had me on as a last-minute guest again today, so I was like, okay, sure, I'll be glad to oblige. And I still had internet service this afternoon, so you can see me next week talking with Carmen, Joel Waldman, as well as attorney John Singer next week, probably on Wednesday. Okay, convicts smell fear and money on the newbies. Yes. Yeah, he already looked pretty unhealthy and kind of scared looking. He did not look big and strong and tough when he showed up in court. It would be interesting to interview someone who went to jail in Leon County to see what kind of life is there. Oh, well, this is sort of similar, but one of my subscribers, you guys might have seen Renee Miller's comments on some videos, but she works in the jail or prison system around Tallahassee. And so she's willing to be a guest on a live stream show. So Renee is going to talk with us about, life for people in prison and what kind of work she does helping to rehabilitate them or prepare the ones that are going to be leaving jail. So I just thought that seems like a really interesting career to have with a lot of insider information that most of us don't know about. So she's going to be the guest on a live stream show next Friday. So hopefully everything will go through and she'll be able to make it and share with us all her experiences, and you guys can ask her questions too. So, oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. You said it was just last month. You'll send the document. Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Don't remind me about the stock market. My portfolio has lost 20%. Yeah, it's pretty depressing. Yeah, seeing how much money people have lost in the stock market this past year. Who's collecting the laundromat quarters with both Katie and Charlie locked up? Yeah, well, probably their CPA, right? Because they gave power of attorney and had their CPA, Jay Shapiro, become the trustee. Yeah, so he's probably handling a lot of things for them now. Well, of course, Donna and Harvey are still out, so they can still be helping Charlie handling his finances and properties. Yeah. Okay. So let's switch over to talking more about the unveiling. If you guys want to, I'm going to share the link again for anybody that is brave enough to show themselves on camera and wants to spice up this live stream show by coming on. And thank you again to Antoine, the gentleman, for giving me this idea through the Lead Attorneys YouTube channel. So I really appreciate that, because before I didn't realize I could just impromptu invite anybody to join me on a live stream. So there is the link in the chat box. If you want to be on, just click on it. Make sure that you are looking good for the camera. Okay. Okay. The $1 million they were willing to pay Dan to relinquish his parental rights can now be used to keep the Adelsons out of prison. Yeah, and some would say that they already used all that money to pay for Katie and Sigfredo's attorneys. So, yeah, I saw that video just the other day. Was it yesterday on Deep Dive True Crime or Crime and Justice with Mentor Lawyer, where he had the hearing with the attorneys arguing about who was paying for Katie McBanuet's legal fees. And we still don't know for sure, because it was ultimately something that the judge did in private in his office, talking with Kawas and the cost. Yeah. Okay. Adele 1, we're connected enough to get Willie Meggs to deter their investigation. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, daring everybody to come on the show live. Yeah. Okay. Well, if nobody wants to come on the show, then I'll just go ahead and critique or give some more comments about this book, because I know it just came out a week and a half ago. So a lot of people have not gotten their books yet, or are still in the middle of reading this wonderful book written by Dan Markel's mother, Ruth Markel, who has also been a guest, as you guys know, on the previous video where I interviewed her. So let's see. Okay, so here's a little bit about the GoFundMe issue that somebody brought up. Okay, a GoFundMe page was started by Dan's friend, Tamara Demko, to get some immediate donations. We were so appreciative to Dan's family and friends for their considerations. The proceeds of the fund were later put in trust for Benjamin and Lincoln. Wendi had tried to attain the GoFundMe donations directly, claiming to be Dan's widow, which added further grief and drama to the process. Okay, so that's basically the only sentence that Ruth wrote in here regarding Wendi trying to get the GoFundMe money. So I wonder if there's I've never created a GoFundMe before, but is there some way that somebody could contact GoFundMe and then petition to try to get the money, saying that they're the widow? I don't know. So if you guys know anything more about how GoFundMe works. Yeah, so again, that sentence said, Wendi had tried to attain the GoFundMe donations directly, claiming to be Dan's widow, which added further grief and drama to the process. Okay, interesting. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Antoine. Yeah, thank you. Well, you save your money for law school. It's okay. Yeah, but thank you so much. Okay, so Antoine says, I'm happy for you. Haven't been able to show up as much. started school full-time, and I'm looking at offers for my first paralegal job. Miss your streams much. Oh, okay. Thank you so much for all your support and everything. So, okay. So, oh, great. Okay, thank you, Moon River, or not Moon River, Moonflower. Just want to let you know the book arrived. Can't wait to read it. Thanks again. Much appreciated. Okay, hope you really enjoy it, and feel free to come back on in the future to tell us your thoughts about it. Okay, so Not Now says, can you explain the title of the book? So, so this is where somewhere towards the middle of the book, Ruth explains that in Jewish culture that there's like a special ceremony when the tombstone is ready and there's a covering on the tombstone is lifted up. So that was a very poignant moment in her grief when she just really broke down and started realizing that her son was gone forever, and that she had tried to hold herself together for quite a while after Dan was murdered. But during this unveiling ceremony, that was when she really had a big breakdown. And, it was just something that was very memorable to her. So that's why the title of the book is called The Unveiling. So I hope I explained that tradition well enough. Yeah, I'm sorry, since I'm not Jewish, I've never been to some sort of unveiling ceremony. So, okay, how sleazy of Wendi to try to scam that money as a widow. Yeah, come on. You're not the widow when you're not married to the guy anymore. Yeah. Okay, Tilo is a fast reader. Yeah, so Tony said she read it in 3 days. That's great. Okay, GoFundMe full of fraudsters. Yeah, that's right. That's why you won't see me donating to random strangers anymore. I think I've done it in the past a little bit, but I have enough real friends and family in real life that need money all the time. So, and unveiling is something in the Jewish community when the headstone is unveiled. Yeah. Okay, thank you. What? My God, Wendi the widow. She has no conscience. I read a book in a week sometimes. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's great. So we can talk more about other criminal cases sometime soon, since Tony reads so much about those cases. It's not politics. It's a possible situation that someone might want to look into. Nonprofits are entities that are often manipulated. Wendi isn't a great candidate for a job. Who is on the board? Okay. Yeah, well, that impact fund is over with, as far as I know, because their website doesn't even work. The website is defunct now. And now she's working at a company that her friend owns called Vault Health. Yeah, so I don't know if there is a board or is it just owned by one person. Okay, if I find a book I'm really interested in, I devour it. I read the book and cried uncontrollably at times. I just felt Ruth's pain was so palpable. What this woman has endured with such grace and dignity. I'm obsessed with seeing justice for Dan. Yes, thank you, Bonnie Lee. I appreciate all your comments. And I did forward one of your comments under a previous video to Miss Markel for her to read. So she really appreciates everybody's kind words. So I have been forwarding them to her through email. Yeah, it's a very nice looking book cover also. Yeah. Books make me cry too. Been reading case briefs. Okay, appellate judges are okay, they could be sassy. Yeah, so there were a few other little things here that I marked that I didn't mention during the previous book review live stream. So one really interesting thing that I started looking into was the case of Adam Anhang. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but if you guys knew anything about Adam Anhang's murder, please feel free to drop a message in the chat box, because I had never heard of this case before at all. But in Ruth Markel's book, she mentions that Matt Price, who was Dan Markel's best man at his wedding, introduced Ruth Markel to Matt's father-in-law, Abe Anhang, whose son Adam was brutally murdered in Puerto Rico back in 2005. Oh, so it looks like somebody even made a website for him, which is adamanhang.com. unveiling.com. So, yes, it's a very bizarre case, and I just started reading about it yesterday, all because Ruth had mentioned this in her book. So, a very sad situation where Adam was a young, wealthy real estate investor who had bought up a lot of investment properties in Puerto Rico. So I think he's originally from Toronto or Canada also. So everything kind of went downhill after he met this former Puerto Rico petite beauty pageant winner who, now what was her name? It was something like Audra, or it was some name that I was not familiar with, but he met this like so-called beauty pageant lady and fell madly in love with her in Puerto Rico. And then she lied to him and said that she was pregnant. So he married her. But luckily he had the good sense. Well, I don't know. Okay. So ultimately he got a prenup with this lady who claimed that she was pregnant with his child. But within 6 months after they got married, he realized that she was lying to him about being pregnant. So she was not pregnant at all. She was just a gold digger who saw how filthy rich he was. He was a multimillionaire who owned a lot of properties, especially around Puerto Rico. And he had already been doing all sorts of favors for her family and giving them places to live or something, giving them lots of money. And he had already bought a nightclub or some sort of business for his wife too. But he soon realized that this woman is no good. She lied to him about being pregnant. So he wanted to get a divorce. So then his wife started being all shady and wanting to meet with him directly to discuss the divorce dealings. And so right after they met for dinner, they're walking along outside the restaurant, and somebody ran up and started stabbing Adam. And that's how he died. And his wife was barely scratched up. She might have gotten pushed or shoved or hit a little bit. But apparently there was a witness who later saw the wife talking with the assailant soon after Adam had been stabbed to death. So anyway, it's like a totally different offshoot of a story, but I thought that it was worth mentioning because in this book, Ruth mentions multiple times how Adam's father, Abe, was like her, I guess she called him her murder coach. So let me take this off the screen. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Carrie. Yeah, sounds like you know about this case. Okay, Aria Vasquez Rijos. Yes. So I did start looking into that case very recently. It just sounds so awful. And again, just like Dan Markel's murder, this was a murder that happened because of a impending divorce or because of a family law dispute. So Adam's wife saw that she could get a lot more money if her husband got murdered or conveniently died while she was still his wife. And so for the longest time, it seemed like nothing was going to happen in Adam's murder case. It seemed like the wife, as well as the person who actually stabbed Adam, were going to get away with it. And the wife did all sorts of shady things, like running off to Italy, marrying another man, having twins, and then she got pregnant again when she thought she was going to be going to jail. And so ultimately they had to track her down, maybe in Italy or some other country, and finally flew her back to the United States for her to be prosecuted. So she was finally convicted of murder. And I can't remember if she's supposed to be in prison for life or something, but what a horrible, horrible case. And so I thought it would be nice to read some of these words that were written by Adam's father, Abe, who had really counseled Ruth and given her a lot of inspiration while she was going through the whole investigation and all the trial life. Okay, so Abe wrote to her, "While I understand that the latest delays are pandemic related, if there had been a conviction, this would now be behind you. And for that, I feel truly sorry, since these people play every angle to get delays, always with the hope that something may happen to a witness or the state will lose interest, etc. So like us, you have no choice but to wait it out, sort of like having a tiger by the tail. You cannot let go, no matter what. It took us 14 years chasing her across Europe before she was finally brought back and convicted. Ruth, I am not certain what the odds of getting caught and convicted are in Florida, but I do know that in Puerto Rico, they have an 80% chance of never being convicted. Knowing this statistic, and the murderers do know it, people are prepared to risk murdering for profit. You see, these people know that the court system only too well and know that it is overloaded to begin with. To our embarrassment, they also happen to believe that with the help of a good lawyer, they will get away with it. They really do. Justice has very little to do with it. He wrote that in all caps. That is why, in my opinion, it is so important to get to know the prosecutors and communicate with them often, since with the volume of the cases they carry, it is only too easy for your case to get overlooked in the shuffle. Happy New Year, Abe. Okay, so she expresses a lot of gratitude towards Abe, as well as a bunch of other people and Dan's friends, people she didn't even know before, for trying to help her get through with it and try to bring more publicity to Dan Markel's case. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what it said. He was referring to Puerto Rico, though, like justice in Puerto Rico. Yeah. So it is pretty amazing that after 14 years or so with Adam's soon-to-be ex-wife running around to different countries and trying to evade any sort of prosecution, finally she did get tracked down and was, I'm pretty sure she was sentenced to life in prison. Yeah, so that's the Adam Anhang case, if you guys are interested in looking that up. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, that's not going to happen. Yeah, Sigfredo wrote in that letter to Katie after he got convicted. He said he'll keep appealing until they get tired of him. Yeah. Well, his appeals all have ended. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tony, for tuning in. I hope you feel better. Yeah. Bonnie, I can't imagine. I was just saying the other day in my heart, I believe most people are good, but there's evil everywhere. Yeah. Oh, okay. So you did hear the case about Adam and Heng, yeah, on 2020 or Dateline. Very sad. Yeah, I never heard of the case before. Yeah, so much evil in this world. As a psychiatric nurse of 37 years, having worked in correctional settings, state hospital, etc., I've seen plenty of evil. Yeah. The wife is what's called an okonoslur. They are sent in to sweep a target off there and eventually separate them from their money. There are many possible objectives, including blackmail. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Carrie. It says she got life. Good. Okay, so that's in the other case we were talking about. Yeah. Okay, it's hard not to be jaded, but there are many good people still left in this world. Yes, I agree also. Yes. This sounds silly, but isn't there a limit to how many appeals you can send? Like if you make it to the court of last resort, then it can't go any further. Yeah, so in Florida, okay, so somebody else can just jump in and let me know because I have never practiced law in Florida, but it looked like after Sigfredo Garcia was rejected by the Court of Appeals, then his counsel just did not even bother appealing it to the Florida Supreme Court. I mean, that's what I recall vaguely. Yeah, and that's after watching Deep Dive True Crime or Crime and Justice with Mentor Lawyer, where he was reading all those letters from Sigfredo Garcia's appellate attorney to Sigfredo, where the attorney was basically telling Sigfredo he was an idiot and a fool, and he had the keys to his own freedom, and he threw them away, and someday he'll finally realize that, and that he needs to he should have told the truth about those people down in South Florida, something to that effect. Yeah. So is this your favorite case? Yeah, this is definitely my favorite case because I have been doing more reading. It takes so long to research different legal cases as well as different criminal cases and really get to know all the facts and stuff. So I have delved into the Murdaugh case, the case involving the Wagners and the Rodens up in Ohio, where the whole family got massacred and stuff. But the case that I'm trying to get into now, I just got this book in the mail This has to do with Adnan Syed. And the only reason I know about this case is because one of the commenters mentioned it during the live stream show that Tony and I did, talking about other criminal cases. So I never even heard about this case, which is unusual because I was actually living around the Maryland, D.C. area around the time when the murder of Haymin Lee, I think I'm pronouncing that right. So Adnan Syed was convicted in the year 2000, sentenced to life plus 30 years for the murder of his ex-girlfriend in Baltimore, Maryland. And this was all in the news a couple of weeks ago because he suddenly got freed. And we're not sure if the state is going to try to prosecute him again, but it was due to Brady violations that potentially exculpatory information was not provided to his old attorney. So anyway, so this has all been in the news, and I just haven't had the time in the last week to really, read every single thing, because I don't want to do a live stream show where I barely know anything about the case, especially in a case that has actually been the subject of a very well-known podcast called Serial, and there's a book here. There are other attorneys that have really been working on the case to try to get Adnan freed. And I would love to also get in touch with the victim's family too, but I'm not really sure how. Maybe I could try contacting this attorney that appeared on TV on their behalf, but it all takes so much time, and I really just don't have it, especially since I have a real job, and YouTube just doesn't pay the bills to make it really worth, spending 20 hours a week doing research and contacting people and trying to get guests and all that. I mean, it's really hard. So definitely the Markel case is my favorite case. And for that reason, that was one of the reasons why I changed my channel name, because it's not really like an Asian American focused or Asian American news type thing. I mean, other than the fact that, Katie is Filipino American or whatever, but I would like to cover other legal cases, not just criminal cases, but also any sort of noteworthy civil litigation cases too. So, but my next big thing that I'm going to try to get into is the Adnan Syed case. And I want to read and watch as much as I can to figure out, do I think Adnan really killed his ex-girlfriend, or was it somebody else? So anybody out there that has really been looking into this case, feel free to jump in and let me know what your thoughts are about it. Yeah. Oh yeah, the corn rake killing. Yeah, I heard about that too, but the only reason I know about that case also is because one of the viewers mentioned it as a comment to a video a few months ago, but I haven't had any time to really read and look all into it also. Oh yeah, that was a different Syed, so totally different spelling. Yeah, so the guy that killed his daughters, that's the one that Tony and I were actually talking about on that live stream, and that man was from Egypt, and his last name was spelled differently. I think it was Said. So he was the one that shot his 2 teenage daughters in his taxi cab. So just way too many cases to get into. I hope somehow Dan knows how much he is loved and how many people are fighting for justice, so he may rest in peace. Yeah, and definitely we want his parents and his sister to know that. Yeah. Okay. Oh, hi, Dawn. Yeah, thank you for being here. Yeah, it's Dawn is another person who is graciously offering to help read things too. Yeah. Okay. So appeals are expensive. Yeah, it's expensive to appeal, so that's why people like Katie now have to get a public defender to help her. Yeah. Okay. This has been my favorite since it first happened. There's so many layers. Yes, definitely. Yeah, I was just talking to one of the viewers, the person who's going to help me read some more stuff also today, and I was mentioning to him that this just seems really compelling to me, because you normally don't think of highly educated, well-off people, doing these kinds of devious things like plotting the murder of a former, family member by marriage. And, it's not a straightforward cut and dry murder case, which is normally what we hear about in the news. And then you read a little bit of that and it's like, oh, that's too bad. Okay. And move on with my life. But with this case, I found it so gripping because I felt like I could identify with some of the people. I could sort of identify with Wendi, being someone who had been married to a law professor and had to move someplace that they really didn't want to move to, and having that affect their career and stuff, and going through divorce. And then with Dan, Dan Markel and I were the same year in school, and I actually know people and have known people who knew Dan also. So, just plus I also lived in DC, and Dan also lived in DC and worked for a firm, and he went through that whole meat market thing, which is like a job interview placement festival at the Wardman Park Hotel. So I remember being there also, probably maybe about a year or so before Dan was there, trying to interview for jobs to teach at different law schools. So there's just like so many things that make this Dan Markel Adelson story so much more interesting to me, or people in general, because of the people who are involved, and it involves so many multiple people in this alleged conspiracy, people of different socioeconomic classes, people of different ethnicities. So it's just like very, very interesting, and makes it different from other run-of-the-mill, somebody got shot or someone got murdered by their ex, those kinds of cases. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, the corn rake killing. Yeah, I think it was in Iowa. Yeah, I think so. Let's see. Sorry, I just skipped a bunch of comments, so I'm sorry if I can't get to everybody's channel. Oh, okay. He didn't get a fair trial or investigation. I didn't form an opinion as to his guilt or innocence from the podcast, but it was quite compelling. Okay, so you're talking about the Adnan Syed case. Yeah. So, yeah, I actually did reach out to the author of this, Rabia Chaudhry. I sent her an email through her website, but didn't get any response so far. But I can imagine right now she is really in high demand. A lot of people want to interview her. She's an attorney who graduated from George Mason Law School, and she was good friends with Adnan and his family. So she strongly believed in his innocence, and that's why she wrote this book, and then was actively involved with the podcast, I think, and really spearheaded the movement to try to fight for Adnan's freedom. Yes. So, but at this point, I want to keep an open mind. I haven't really started reading too much about the case. So it would be so great to figure out if there's any way that the victim's family attorney, maybe he'd be willing to be on the show. But, it's just so hard to get guests on the show. So, yeah. Okay, his aunt, get in touch with his aunt. I think she has a channel. I will find it. What do you think of the Adnan case so far? The victim was a darling Korean 16-year-old. Yeah, and that's what I'm not sure. I mean, from what I've read so far, it does seem like there should have been, he didn't get a fair trial. It doesn't seem like that from what I've heard and seen on the media so far, that especially if there was some other guy that had threatened to kill the girl before she was found murdered. And I think there was like another classmate who said that she had been in the library talking with Adnan during that same time that the murder allegedly happened. So there's just like so many like different stories being told by other people. And then of course we're talking about teenagers. So, like, who knows what kind of pressures certain teenagers were having, who was telling the truth, who was just lying to try to cover themselves. I have no idea. Yeah, but it does sound like a horrible way to die, for the poor Korean girl. Yeah, so I read somewhere, like, was she strangled and then transported somewhere and then half buried? I can't even remember, but yeah, that's something I'm just getting into, so I don't want to say anything that could be incorrect. Yeah. Okay. I'm from Baltimore. I know someone who knows him and the family. I was living in Baltimore when that happened. Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so if you want to tell us what your thoughts are on what happened to Adnan, and whether you think he did commit the murder or was he innocent. Yeah. Okay, yeah, justice for Dan. Yeah. I've been reading family law cases. Common law marriage is riddled with interesting issues. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are just so many cases where people are having marital problems, or they just got divorced, or somebody's threatening to divorce, and then murder ends up happening. Yeah. So I did also ask another attorney if he would like to be a guest on that show, because he handles a lot of divorce cases and has his own YouTube channel. So I need to figure out what date he might be willing to come in. Okay, so the corn rake person is Todd. Oh, yeah, Andrea Snyderman, watch her testify. Okay, yeah, other people have mentioned the Andrea Snyderman case also. Yeah. Listened to the entire serial podcast the day he was released and thought he was innocent. Then listened to the prosecutor's podcast. I'm not so sure now. Yeah, okay, yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to listen to, and I guess that's why those news channels or Law and Crime Network have a big team of researchers and people just doing all the research, because you don't want to give out bad information. Yeah, the Vallow Daybell case is heating up. Oh, yeah. I've been reading a little bit about that too, so maybe Tony and I will discuss that more on a future live stream show. Yeah, another case where, it had to do with people wanting to get rid of a former spouse or spouse. Aren't there lawyers? Oh, yes, definitely. There are definitely a lot of lawyers who make a whole career out of doing only criminal appeals or only civil appeals. So one of my cases is getting appealed to the North Carolina Court of Appeals, and I was kind of relieved that the client ended up hiring an attorney who only specializes in doing civil litigation appeals, and I know he's going to do a great job at it. Yeah, I also have a good friend who does criminal appeals and is paid through the government or some government agency to do criminal appeals. So, yeah, I mean, I think she finds it pretty fulfilling and a very interesting job to work on criminal appeals. Yeah, who paid Sigfredo's team? Yeah, we have no idea, but it seems like a lot of people suspect the Adelsons. Yeah. The irony that, yeah, Dan's focus was criminal law. Yes, definitely. And I'm still not done reading Dan Markel's book either. So, well, he wrote a lot of things. Yeah, so I haven't even read most of the writings. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, the interesting thing is, like, I tried to contact him, and it doesn't look like he even has a website for his law practice, which is kind of unusual, but maybe he's in such high demand that he doesn't even have to have a website in this day and age. So, so there was some other website where he showed up, had a profile on some lawyer's website, and there was a way you could click to send a message to the attorney. So I did ask him if he would like to be on the show, and have received no response. So yeah, it probably looked like junk mail, or I'm sure he gets tons and tons of messages every day, and he doesn't have time to be on somebody's YouTube channel. So yeah, because he could be making big bucks working for his clients, right? Yeah, so it's hard to get a lot of guests. That's why I'm impressed with Surviving the Survivor, getting such a good variety of interesting guests. And I know Steve Cohen works really hard to get the guests to be on their show. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. He has so many layers, from a wonderful, educated, successful father murdered to the unbelievable loss for Ruth, her beloved son, and then her grandsons. Yes, and we're all still kind of like waiting, hoping that there's going to be true justice. Charlie hasn't been convicted yet. The other Adelson family members haven't been criminally charged yet. And of course, we're all hoping that someday, sooner than later, the Markels will be able to spend time and have just unfettered access and a good relationship with their grandsons. Yeah. It seems Dan's issue was fairness and justice. He couldn't accept the unjust and unfair behavior exhibited by Wendi and her family. Yeah. There is this article that Dan's friend from Harvard, David Latt, wrote many years ago, where maybe I will bring that up in a future live stream. But I thought it was so well written about what kind of person Dan was. And David basically said that Dan always had to do the right thing. Like, he was very driven by a sense of justice, And he wasn't the type of person that would just let things slide or not care about things. He would be the type of person that would really care about causes. So, he's definitely not going to, obviously, he didn't want to just appease Wendi and let it slide whenever she would trample on his rights or violate the settlement agreement and do all those devious things regarding him and his children. So yeah, definitely that seems to be part of Dan's character, that he wasn't going to just let things be unfair and then not even speak up about things. Yeah. Oh, the author? Oh, no, the author is not his aunt. Yeah, because I did read up on Rabia Chaudhry and I looked at her website and stuff. So, yeah, so she did say that she's a family friend. Yeah, family friend who has always believed him. Yeah, by 2013, after almost all appeals had been exhausted, Rabia contacted Sarah Koenig, a producer at This American Life, in hopes of finding a journalist who could shed light on Adnan's story. Yeah, so she's not a relative, but a very close family friend who has really done a lot, like made it basically her life goal to free her family friend. Yeah, so let's see, Dan's heart was probably breaking every time Wendi would keep the boys from him. It's unjust and unfair. Children are priceless. Yes, and especially, if you want to have influence over the kids, you have to spend time with them when they are young, so the Markel grandparents are missing out on those prime years of bonding moments with their grandchildren. Yeah. Let's see, he's so guilty. Dan couldn't have been a piece of cake to live with it. Yeah, that's what we talked about a little bit on Surviving the Survivor today, that Carm, Joel Waldman's mother, it still feels weird calling her Carm. I feel like I should call her Dr. Waldman. She was saying, well, a lot of times people just don't want to speak ill of the dead, that, we're discussing whether Dan, obviously, he was not like 100% angel himself. Both he and Wendi did have their own personal flaws and stuff. And people did say that Dan could be kind of confrontational and abrasive to people and seem arrogant. And he liked to argue. He liked to have debates and just speak his mind. So yeah, I mean, we're not saying Dan was 100% angel all the time, obviously. But we definitely agree that, he definitely should not have been murdered. Yeah. Yep, exactly. People get divorced every day, shouldn't end in murder. Okay. There was something saying that Katie's sister-in-law was arrested for embezzlement. Money was used for her defense. Any information? Yeah, that's just a conjecture. Yeah. I mean, we just don't know. And actually, the sister-in-law and her brother did get divorced around the time that she was either arrested or convicted or something. Yeah. And it did look like the former sister-in-law, Samantha, had given a ton of money, over $600,000, to that so-called spiritual healer who was also a friend of Katie's. Yeah, so I'm not sure if any of that embezzled money could have gone to Katie somehow for her legal defense. Yeah, so people are just guessing. We don't have any concrete evidence about that. Yeah. Okay, who would behave as Wendi did? No sense of honor whatsoever, no reverence for the bonds of children and father. Okay, Sigfredo has no understanding of the justice system. Apparently, you don't just appeal and appeal. That's right. Yeah, it eventually ends. Yeah. Okay. Okay, interesting. Okay, I haven't fully read up on that also. Yeah. Okay, the undisclosed podcast is Arabia's podcast. Oh, you mean Rabia? Okay, in Adnan. Okay, yeah, just so many other things to get into and do research. Yes, definitely. Oh, okay, yeah, Rabia's. Okay. Justice for the Markel family. Oh, okay. Hope Mentor Lawyer is here tonight. The defendant in Wisconsin that ran over the parade spectators and participants is going to defend himself. It's already turned into a circus. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anytime you have some nutty defendant that wants to represent him or herself, it can be just kind of like a sad circus in the courtroom. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you, Roxanne. Thanks so much. Okay. I think I do have to end it. I think I've run out of my speaking voice already. So thank you guys all for bearing with me and everything. But I do want to also just mention one more little part of the book that I thought was good to mention. This was kind of like a nice feel good moment in the book. She said, "Justice for Dan didn't want Danny's 49th birthday to pass by unobserved, especially because it would have fallen in the middle of the trial, which was no longer happening at that time. Karen Cyphers, Jason Solomon, Jeremy Cohen, and Tamara Demko arranged virtual and in person celebrations to honor his memory. They created a toy drive in which friends could donate toys or money to Toys for Tots Tallahassee. Those who lived in town brought these toys to Winthrop Park, located just a block from where Dan had lived and where he had loved to bring the boys to play. The park has a bench with a plaque in his memory. Karen and Tamara decorated the bench with flowers and donated toys, which had been sent from friends around the world. News coverage of the event led to others contributing gifts. It was a joy to know that children would receive these gifts in Dan's honor at a time when our family was missing him and his boys so deeply." So that's just like one of the nice memories or nice things to hear about in Ruth Markel's book. So again, I encourage you guys to buy this. There was one commenter who mentioned that you can actually get this for less at Walmart.com. So that's good to know. Previously, I had only known about Amazon, but it is also available on other websites like Barnes and Noble and now apparently Walmart.com. So hopefully you guys will all support Ruth Markel and purchase this book if you can. So thank you guys all for being here. Yeah. High five car. Anyone check on Dan's girlfriend in New York? She must have been devastated. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to contact her. I'm sure she doesn't want to talk to anybody publicly. Yeah, so that's very sad. I think she was definitely just totally traumatized by his murder. Yeah. Um, let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah. The picture of the bench with toys and Ruth's descriptions had me crying. Yes. So sometimes when you see Mentor Lawyer playing tennis on his YouTube channel, I think he does more of the tennis playing on his Crime and Justice with Mentor Lawyer. Then he points out that, oh, there's that park over there where Dan Markel would take his kids and play. And that's where they have the bench that is his memorial to Dan Markel. So that's really nice of Mentor Lawyer to point that out when he is at the park. Yeah. Wonder if Dan's boys heard about that. Yeah, they probably didn't because, Wendi had nothing to do with that memorial. Yeah. So wonder if MT Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, so definitely Mentor Lawyer knows about the bench because he's mentioned it in some of his shows where he's playing tennis at that same park. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you guys all for being here again. I really appreciate everybody's support and interest in the Dan Markel case, as well as Ruth Markel's new, amazing, wonderful, riveting book called The Unveiling. And so maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on whether Dawn has time, then hopefully we will read another document from one of Charlie Adelson's crazy, frivolous cases, frivolous in my opinion. So that's the next thing. And then next Friday, I hope to have Renee, one of the subscribers, on as a guest, and she will talk to us about the jail situation in Tallahassee and, what things are like for people in jail and programs that they have to help people when they are going to be released from jail. So kind of a slightly different topic, but I think it should be very interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Don. Thanks. I look forward to hearing from you. Yeah. Have a good night. Have a great weekend, you guys. Thank you. Take care.